Welcome to chapter 8, the book of 2 Samuel. David strikes the nations. So now David is king, conquering all these different people. We've read that in the past couple of chapters. But now, chapter 8, it goes more into his conquests. Not a very long chapter. It came to pass, after these things, David struck the Philistines, which were over towards the Gaza Strip, as we've mentioned, and put them to flight. And David took the things being separated from the hands of the Philistines. So I have a map here. We'll go to there. So here are the Philistines down here where the Gaza Strip is today. And David took the things from them, and then David struck Moab and measured them in measuring lines. Moab is down here to the east of the Dead Sea, the Moabites. So he measured them in measuring lines, resting them upon the ground. That doesn't say how many people. And there were the two measured out lines to kill, and the fullness of the third measured out line he took alive. It sounds pretty gruesome. People back in those days were very brutal, and God told Israel to take these people. Well, Israel, on the whole, did better at taking people, capturing them, than they did following God's laws, as we find throughout the different kings. But here, David separates the ones to be put to death and the ones to live. Today, you would think, well, can the church do the same thing? Can we, go to war against people? Countries have. But Jesus, in the period of grace, has given us a different method of dealing with people. Basically, if they come against us, then turn the other cheek and so forth. Not the government, of course, but a person, individual. And then, but there's, did he mean that even protecting your family? I don't think so. I think it's okay it'd be fine to protect your family, because when Jesus later told the disciples about taking a sword and how many and how much, and one sword was enough, and that one sword would have probably been for the, I believe, the protection of the person and his family. And then it goes on, and David struck Adarazer, the son of Rahab, king of Zobah, in his going to set his hand against the Euphrates River. And now this is the king of Zobah up in this area. Here's the Euphrates River up here. Up above Carchemish was where the battle between the Egyptians and the Babylonians. And Hamath, there's a city, and then there's the entrance to Hamath, was a well-known place in the mentioned place in the last 10 chapters of the book of Ezekiel, where the northern borders of Israel would be up here, and then the southern borders would be right about where Jerusalem is. And then all the lands are divided by straight across. And the capital, or not the capital, but the temple would be on Mount, I believe, Meron, which is right here, a little bit to the northwest of the Lake of Galilee, because it says that the water flows eastward into the Lake of Galilee, so it couldn't possibly be Jerusalem. So David first took 1,000 chariots of his. That's a lot of chariots. Armaments comes from that word. And 7,000 horsemen and 20,000 footmen. And David disabled all the chariots and left behind for himself from them 100 chariots. That would be of the people that he destroyed, apparently. And Syria of Damascus comes to help Hadadrazer, king of Zobah. Damascus is down here behind my camera. There it is. So Damascus is still around today, mentions though in Isaiah where it will cease to be, about the 8th chapter, I believe. Cease to be in existence. So Syria comes from Damascus to help the king of Zobah, and David struck among the Syrians 22,000 men. And David put a detachment in Syria near Damascus, and the Syrians became to David for bondmen bearing tributes. They were giving money to David. And the Lord delivered David wheresoever he went. And David took the armlets of gold that were upon the children of Hadadezer, king of Zobah, and brought them unto Jerusalem. And from out of Batak, and from out of the chosen cities of Hadadezer, King David took exceedingly much brass, probably later to go into building the temple, and those giant 2 columns in the front of brass. And Toig, the king of Hamath, heard that David struck all the forces of Hadadezer. So Hamath again is up here. So he's heard that David has come up and taken this. And what happens? Toig sent Joram, his son, to King David to ask him the things for peace, and congratulated him over which he waged war with Hadadezer, and struck him, for he was an adversary to Hadadezer. And in his hands were items of silver and items of gold and items of brass, basically a tribute without going to war. And he gave these things to David. And these things King David sanctified to the Lord for the temple later, with the silver and the gold of which he sanctified from all the cities which he overpowered, even from Edom and from Moab and from the sons of Ammon. Well, Edom is here, the sons of Ammon are in here. All this is Jordan, country of Jordan today, and Edom is down here. It's Ammon, and then the Ammon in Moab. The Philistines, and from Amalek, and they were basically the Canaanites, southern part of Israel, and from the spoils of Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zobah. And David made a name for himself. And in his returning, he struck Idumeah in Gebalim to 18,000, and that's down to the south. Edom is down here. So he went down there after he comes down, takes over Edom. And he put in Edom detachments. In all Edom, he stationed ones setting up monuments to Israel, I suppose, and all the ones in Edom became bondmen to David. And the Lord preserved David wherever he went. So now he's becoming very strong and powerful. And David reigned over all Israel, all the tribes. And David was executing, here we have 4160 peon, to do, and here you could say David was doing equity, but executing sounds better. Many English words for this 4160, which is the number 1 verb in usage in the Apostolic Bible. So David was executing equity and righteousness over all his people. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the military, and he was the one that killed Abner, if you remember, chapter or so back. And Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was over the ones recording. And Zadok, son of Ahitob, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests, and I would suppose you would call them chief priests. And Sareas was the scribe. And Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was counselor. And the Cherethite and the Pelethite, and the sons of David were chiefs of the palace. So these people, sort of a bodyguard to David. Chapter 9, we go in to find out about what David, how he handles the house of Saul. Find out. You have to join us next video seminar, chapter 9. Till then, God bless.